What is up guys, it's your boy Solheim here, back with another Wrath of the Lich King Classic video. Today we are continuing our class review series, where I will review the classes of Wrath based on farming gold, to ultimately find out which class is the best for farming gold. And not only that, but some of the classes are really strong at specific types of gold farming, and a little bit weaker at others. So what I'm trying to say is that different classes have different strengths and weaknesses, which we will go through in these videos. So sit down, fasten your seatbelts, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and join me in the hunt for the best gold farming class. Now before we get into today's video, a quick shout out from today's sponsor, myself. That's right, I've made and published my own gold making guide for Wrath of the Lich King Classic, so if you're looking to make as much gold as possible in Wrath, that guide is definitely worth checking out. It is even relevant right now as I go through multiple TBC investments that you can buy right now and sell in Wrath for potentially massive profit. I go through specific gold farming locations in Wrath where you can take advantage of knowing about each locations at the launch, and I go through which items will be in high demand in phase 1 of Wrath Classic. That is just a small portion of what I go through in the guide. The guide will contain everything I know about gold farming and gold making in Wrath, and I will keep updating the guide up until and after the launch of Wrath Classic with the most up-to-date and secret gold making information out there. And once you have purchased the guide, you will get all of the future updates for free. Right now you can also get the guide for 50% off by using the code Solheim, and the link to the guide is down below. Thank you all so much for the support, I really appreciate each and every single one of you. Now let's go check out the mage class for farming gold. So what's the mage's current strengths in TBC Classic? AoE pulling in the open world and inside dungeons, the latter of which usually results in mages selling boosts inside dungeons. This is not really changing for Wrath of the Lich King. Mages will still be the absolute kings of AoE farming, but there are a couple of changes coming in that does impact the mage in a couple of ways, and could actually lead to mages being even stronger than they currently are in TBC Classic. The number one change we have to look at, which has huge potential in Wrath, is the fact that abilities that did not have the ability to deal critical strikes in the Burning Crusade can actually deal critical strikes in Wrath of the Lich King. For example, damage over time effects could not critically hit in TBC Classic, but they can in Wrath. And more specific to mages though, AoE abilities such as Blizzard did not have the ability to deal critical strikes on each individual tick in TBC Classic, but in Wrath of the Lich King, your Blizzard ability can now deal critical strikes on each individual hit. This stacks really well with talents such as Fingers of Frost, where your Blizzard ticks will also deal damage as if the target was frozen, which can be scaled up even further by using other talents, such as Shatter, which increases your critical strike chance against frozen targets by a massive amount, and Ice Shards, which increases your critical strike damage by up to 100%. These changes are what makes mages the absolute kings of AoE farming in my opinion, coupled with what we already know about mages from Classic WoW and TBC Classic as well, where mages were already the kings of AoE, and in Wrath they just keep getting better, especially at smaller and more controlled AoE pools, which is what you will be focusing on in the open world. When it comes to open world farms then, mages will be incredible at, for example, eternal farming, being able to pull a huge amount of elementals in one huge pull for them to burst them down, and you really burst them down incredibly fast. In addition to eternal farming, you can also farm lashers for eternal life, which is actually a really good gold farming method in Wrath of the Lich King, and because of open world AoE farming, you can also farm skinning at incredibly high efficiency. So if you haven't figured it out yet, based on what I just said, being a mage with herbalism and skinning could be absolutely incredible, as both of those professions help you make more gold while farming mobs in the open world, and those are my preferred professions on a mage for farming gold, or for farming purposes specifically. The good thing about being good at open world farming is that is where the most options within gold farming actually are. For herbalism and mining, there's a set amount of farming routes, usually 1 or 2 per zone, plus some individual options as well, but for open world farming there's literally hundreds of options for you to choose from, and I actually have more than 20 open world farming locations, probably closer to 30 or 40 as well, included in my gold guide that I mentioned earlier in this video, which you can once again find a link to in the video description down below. So if you are playing a mage and you don't know, or you want to know where to farm, and you know you want to do some open world AoE farming, but you don't know exactly where to farm, consider checking that guide out for multiple examples of where you can farm gold. Alongside a open world AoE farming, we can't really talk about mages and farming gold without mentioning boosting, because there's a high likelihood of boosting being a thing in Wrath of the Lich King as well, just like it currently is in TBC Classic, and just like it was back in Classic WoW as well. Once again, Blizzard has shown they are willing to fix boosting for things like Season of Mastery, but I can't imagine they will touch it for Wrath of the Lich King. Boosting is where you will find a lot of gold, especially when it comes to farming gold, and mages are, and probably always will be, the kings of boosting. For Wrath of the Lich King specifically, mages will still be able to do all of the boosts that they are currently doing in TBC Classic, and on top of that there are some possibilities for boosting Wrath dungeons as well to boost players up to level 75, potentially even all the way up to level 80. Whether or not that actually becomes possible depends on if we can find clever line of sight mechanics, like mages are currently using in Shadow Labs, and the layout of dungeons in Wrath does make that a little bit difficult, but as more and more mages start testing things, I would not be surprised to see a boosting technique or two pop up over time. And let's say there are no possible boosts available in Wrath dungeons, boosting people from level 10 to 68 will still be a massive gold mine, or dare I say gold farm, as a bunch of people will be leveling up alts in Wrath because of the addition of heirlooms, which makes you level up faster. Also, pretty much all classes are viable for raiding in Wrath, so a lot of people might switch mains sometime throughout the expansion, and in general there's just a lot of reasons to level up more characters in Wrath of the Lich King, so boosting could become absolutely huge. Also, when it comes to boosting in general, the fact that Blizzard can now crit on each individual hit will now speed up each boost significantly, and make mage boosts even more efficient. All of this being said though, the mage definitely has its weaknesses, so weakness number 1, they have no speed increase when it comes to herbalism and mining, making them inferior to at least 3 other classes when it comes to flying around looking for materials. Weakness number 2, they have to choose if they want to AoE farm or single target farm pretty early, as you might need a different spec for different types of farming. You could go for a hybrid frost spec based on the frostbite talent, which has a chance to freeze enemies upon hitting them with a frost spell, which makes you able to solo elites, but it's difficult to combine a single target spec with a viable boosting spec and an AoE spec. So while mages have the ability to be very flexible and do both AoE farming, single target farming and level boosting, they might require a respec in order to do so, which could become very costly over time. Alternatively, purchase the dual talent specialization if you plan to respec a lot. That being said, what makes mages such a good class for farming gold is how strong they are at using their class strengths. Sure, they have their weaknesses, but their strengths are absolutely massive, and if you are going for AoE farming and you're not playing a mage, you are doing it wrong. And yeah, I think that is basically it for mages and gold farming in Wrath of the Lich King. I'm planning on leveling a mage myself, so there will be tons of concrete examples of where to farm gold coming up during Wrath of the Lich King Classic itself, so make sure you are subscribed and stay tuned for those videos in the future. If you enjoyed this video, please consider clicking that like button. It really helps out my channel, and it pushes this video into the almighty YouTube algorithm. As always, thank you so much for your support, thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, I'll see you again very soon.